25. Rich black pastors who lied about God for fame. What if the very voices that taught you to trust God were quietly teaching you to trust their brand instead? Today we're pulling back the velvet curtain on a world where miracles go viral. Blessings come with price tags and private jets, sometimes speak louder than the Bible. These aren't rumors you can brush aside, they're stories that force every believer to ask hard questions about power, money, and truth in the modern church. Stay with Legends of Black Excellence, because what you're about to hear might challenge everything you assumed. If you're ready for fearless, respectful truth, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs discernment. Creflo Dollar. Creflo Augustus Dollar Jr., born in 1962 in College Park, Georgia, built World Changers Church International from a small group in 1986 into a widely known ministry with television books and packed services. By the late 1990s, the church opened an 500-seat sanctuary in Atlanta's suburbs, and in the 2010s, it was still counted among America's largest congregations, drawing roughly 15,000 people a week. His sermons taught that believers can expect material well-being through faith and generosity, a message that resonated with many working-class families searching for hope and stability. Do you think giving should ever buy a blessing? Dollar's reputation changed in 2015 when his ministry asked supporters to help purchase a Gulfstream G650 aircraft priced around $65 million, describing it as necessary for global outreach. The plan sought 200,000 gifts of $300 each, but the appeal was pulled after intense public criticism. Detractors saw the request as a symbol of excess. Defenders argued that constant travel requires reliable, secure transport. He has faced ongoing questions about financial openness. The church has not provided independent audits, and watchdog groups and journalists have highlighted expensive homes and cars linked to him. Separately, in 2012, he was arrested after an alleged assault involving his teenage daughter. The case was dismissed in 2013 after he completed court-ordered counseling. In 2022, Dollar publicly reversed his long-held view that tithing is a binding rule for Christians, saying he had misread Scripture and encouraging voluntary giving instead. Some praised the humility of that correction, while others wondered how many families had been pressured by the earlier teaching. Bishop Eddie Long. Eddie Lee Long, 1953-2017, rose from a young preacher in Georgia to one of the most influential black religious figures in America. Taking leadership of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in 1987, he oversaw explosive growth by widely reported counts. The congregation expanded from a few hundred people to roughly 25,000 at its peak. Alongside that expansion came a polished public image, commanding sermons, national conferences, a strong emphasis on male leadership in the home, and a reputation as a cultural power broker in black Christian life. For many families, he represented discipline, dignity, and success under God. But the title's tension, wealth, fame, and truth centers on what followed. In 2010, 4 young men filed lawsuits claiming Long used his authority to coerce sexual relationships when they were teenagers, alleging gifts and access were part of the grooming. Long denied wrongdoing from the pulpit and framed the accusations as an attack on his calling. The cases ended in a private settlement in 2011. The exact terms were never publicly released, though media speculation about dollar figures has never been verified. What is concrete is that the settlement closed the legal chapter without a courtroom verdict, leaving the public to wrestle with competing narratives. Long's lifestyle also drew attention: tailored suits, luxury vehicles, and a standard of living that critics said clashed with his preaching on sacrifice. In later years, he announced he had an aggressive form of cancer, and he died in January 2017. Today, his legacy remains split: to some, a gifted shepherd who faltered; to others, a warning about charisma unchecked by accountability. T.D. Jakes. Thomas Dexter T.D. Jakes, born in 1957 in West Virginia, became one of the most recognizable black church leaders of the last 3 decades. After pastoring smaller congregations, he founded the Potter's House in Dallas in 1996. The church grew into a major non-denominational megachurch with reported membership above 30,000 and an 8,000-seat sanctuary, reaching millions more through TV streaming, books, and conferences. His preaching style blended biblical teaching with motivational language about healing, purpose, and resilience, which helped him cross into mainstream culture. When a preacher becomes a celebrity, do you expect the message to stay the same? Jakes also built a sprawling media and business ecosystem, TDJ Enterprises, film production, publishing music, and large-scale events. Industry reporting has credited his wider brand with hundreds of millions in gross revenue over 2 decades, even though personal wealth estimates vary. Supporters see this as smart stewardship and cultural influence. Critics argue it risks blurring ministry into marketplace, especially alongside a visibly affluent lifestyle and high-ticket conferences. Unlike some figures in your transcript, Jakes has not been convicted of financial crimes, and many debates around him are about optics and theology rather than court rulings. In late 2024, he suffered a serious heart attack while preaching. In April 2025, he announced he would step down as lead pastor, naming his daughter Sarah Jakes Roberts and son-in-law Touré Roberts as co-senior pastors beginning July 2025, while he remains on the board and continues broader initiatives. For admirers, the transition reflects legacy and longevity. For skeptics, it reopens the bigger question your title points to: at what point does a powerful pulpit turn into a profitable platform? Pastor Joel Peebles. Joel R. Peebles, Sr. stepped into a legacy almost no one could carry lightly. He is the son of Apostle Betty Peebles and Bishop James Peebles, founders of Jericho City of Praise in Landover, Maryland, one of the Washington area's best-known black churches. After his mother's death in October 2010, Peebles became the public face of a ministry already shaped by decades of revival culture, community service, and a strong media presence. What followed wasn't a quiet transition, but a long, bruising struggle over who truly controlled the church's leadership and assets. Beginning in 2011-2012, a faction of trustees and senior employees claimed authority over Jericho's board and finances, insisting Peebles had no rightful seat. The dispute spiraled into multiple lawsuits across Maryland and Washington, D.C. In April 2012, Peebles was removed as acting pastor and even escorted from the property by police after being told he was trespassing, an extraordinary scene for a congregation that had once viewed him as heir apparent. Early court actions went against him, with a Prince George's County judge recognizing the rival board at one point. But the legal saga kept moving. By mid-2015, a D.C. Superior Court judge ruled that the takeover by the rival group was illegitimate and restored governance to the original trustees, including Peebles. Appellate decisions later upheld that outcome, effectively returning board control to his side after roughly 6 years of litigation. Unlike many prosperity gospel controversies in your transcript, Peebles' story is less about miracle marketing and more about inheritance authority and the costly collision between church family and legal reality. The headlines weren't about a jet campaign, they were about whether a spiritual dynasty could survive the courtroom. Reverend Jamal Bryant. Reverend Dr. Jamal Harrison Bryant, born in 1971 and raised in Baltimore, came to national attention as a sharp, activist-minded preacher with credentials from Morehouse College and Duke Divinity School. In 2000, he founded Empowerment Temple AME Church, growing it into a prominent Baltimore congregation noted for energetic worship and civic engagement. By 2018, he was called to lead New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Stonecrest, Georgia, a major black megachurch once pastored by Eddie Long. Bryant stepped in, promising organizational revival, community outreach, and a fresh preaching voice aimed at younger believers without losing older ones. When a pastor is also a public activist, do you judge the ministry differently? His public life has long included controversy. Bryant and reality TV personality Giselle Bryant divorced in 2009. Both have spoken openly in later years about his admitted infidelity during the marriage, which he has described as a personal failing requiring spiritual repair. Over time, rumors about additional relationships have circulated in tabloids and church gossip, though not all claims are verified and no criminal convictions stem from them. Critics also challenge his prosperity tone and celebrity visibility, arguing that a high-profile platform can tilt sermons toward performance. Supporters counter that visibility is precisely why he can mobilize resources for black causes. In 2025, he drew major headlines for launching a Lenten consumer boycott of Target after the company reduced DEI initiatives. Bryant reported large participation and framed the action as cooperative economics, later pushing for broader corporate accountability. Whether one sees him as prophetic or polarizing, Bryant represents the modern black preacher at a crossroads, part pulpit, part public square, where every sermon is weighed not only for theology, but for trust. Juanita Bynum. Juanita Bynum, born in Chicago in 1959, became one of the most visible black female voices in Pentecostal media during the late 1990s and 2000s. She rose through a rare three-lane platform preaching music and publishing, first capturing national attention with women-centered revival messages and later expanding into best-selling devotionals and conference circuits. Her No More Sheets series and the book The Threshing Floor helped turn her into a household name among church-going Americans, especially women seeking spiritual renewal after divorce trauma or moral failure. At her peak, she was regularly described in mainstream press as a top black woman televangelist, and her events reportedly drew thousands at a time. Her public image took a major hit in 2007 when she accused her husband, Bishop Thomas Wesley Weeks III, of beating her in an Atlanta parking lot. The case became a national conversation about domestic violence in the church. Weeks later pleaded guilty to aggravated assault and received a sentence that included probation and counseling. Bynum returned to ministry afterward, but her brand never fully escaped the shadow of that episode. Critics in the years that followed focused less on the assault, which many viewed her as a victim of, and more on ministry commercialization, costly conferences, aggressive product marketing, and prosperity-leaning rhetoric that some felt blurred encouragement into monetization. Financial estimates about her wealth vary, but most public figures place her in the multi-million-dollar range, typically several million to around 10 million, built through books, recordings, speaking fees, and media deals. Supporters see a survivor who rebuilt her life and helped others do the same. Skeptics see a cautionary example of how quickly healing can become an industry. Either way, her story sits right in the tension of your title between real spiritual impact and the temptations of fame. Bishop Clarence McClendon. Bishop Clarence E. McClendon, born in 1965 in Decatur, Illinois, is a black American preacher and gospel artist who built a public profile through both ministry and music. He began preaching as a teenager, relocated to Los Angeles in the early 1990s, and eventually founded what is now Full Harvest International Church. Alongside pastoring, he led the Harvest Fire Megamass Choir and released gospel projects that charted nationally, giving him a dual identity pulpit leader and recording figure. His visibility expanded further when he appeared on the reality series Preachers of L.A., 2013 to 2014, a show that brought megachurch culture, its glamour, and its critics into American living rooms. When a pastor's life looks like Hollywood does it, change how you hear the sermon. In the years since, McClendon has faced public pushback typical of celebrity clergy. Commentators have questioned his fundraising style, his emphasis on personal breakthrough themes, and the polished luxury that surrounds his brand. Online critics have also circulated claims about questionable financial ventures, including calls for supporters to invest in business-related opportunities connected to his ministry. It's important to say clearly many of these accusations live in commentary spaces rather than court records, and no widely reported criminal conviction has been established against him. What is undeniable is the broader perception battle supporters see an anointed leader using media to reach people. Skeptics see a faith entrepreneur whose platform blurs spiritual guidance with commercial ambition. McClendon's story fits your title because it sits at that crossroads, a gifted communicator who gained fame in an era where preaching, entertainment, and money often share the same stage. Whether one views him as visionary or over-branded, his rise shows how quickly modern ministry can drift into celebrity economics if accountability stays off camera. Bishop Noel Jones. Bishop Noel Jones, born January 31, 1950 in Spanish Town, Jamaica, is a Jamaican-American Pentecostal leader best known for guiding the City of Refuge Church in Gardena, California. He moved to the United States as a teenager, entered ministry young, and by the mid-1990s was appointed to lead Greater Bethany Community Church in South Los Angeles. Under his direction, the congregation expanded dramatically, relocating in 2003 to a larger campus, and later adopting the City of Refuge name. Public profiles and church materials consistently describe membership around the 17,000 range, placing it among the larger Black-led charismatic churches in the country. His preaching style combines classical Pentecostal fervor with counseling-like encouragement, and he has long promoted spiritual restoration, family stability, and personal discipline. Jones also became a recognizable media figure. A documentary, Hoover Street Revival 2002, captured his church in its growth years, and later mainstream exposure increased through celebrity circles and reality television via his sister entertainer Grace Jones and the broader fascination with megachurch life. With that visibility came criticism typical of high-profile prosperity-era pastors. Observers have questioned the optics of luxury, the closeness to entertainment culture, and the way charisma can drift into celebrity influence. Importantly, many online rumors about his finances or private life circulate without verifiable court findings, so they should be treated as commentary rather than established fact. What is clear is the tension your title highlights for supporters. He represents a gifted shepherd who built a thriving spiritual home. For skeptics, he embodies the modern risk of turning ministry into a platform where image access and applause can matter as much as scripture. Whether one views him as inspirational or overexposed, Noel Jones's career shows how easily a powerful pulpit can become publicly scrutinized when faith and fame share the same spotlight. Pastor John Gray. John W. Gray III, born in 1973 in Cincinnati, built a national name as a gifted communicator long before leading his own congregation. After years serving under Joel Osteen at Lakewood Church, he became senior pastor of Relentless Church in Greenville, South Carolina, around 2013. His preaching style, part humor, part confession, part altar call fire, quickly drew a large audience on Sundays and online. He also expanded his reach through books and Oprah Winfrey Network projects, especially the Book of John Gray, which helped cement him as a media-friendly church figure rather than a strictly local pastor. Public criticism peaked in late 2018 when Gray presented his wife Avantair with a Lamborghini Urus widely priced near $200,000, $220,000. The gift went viral and triggered backlash about pastoral luxury. Gray insisted on video that the vehicle was paid for with personal income from television and publishing, not tithes. Around the same period, reporting showed the church had purchased a parsonage-style home for him valued near $1.8 million, which leaders defended as appropriate for attracting and hosting a high-profile pastor. Supporters applauded his transparency and argued that ministers are allowed to prosper. Skeptics felt the optics contradicted sermons on sacrifice. In April 2025, Gray publicly apologized for multiple inappropriate relationships that nearly ended his marriage, describing them as failures tied to earlier trauma. He and his wife chose to remain together and continue ministry. Today, he remains a polarizing figure to admirers, a brutally honest shepherd who reaches people traditional churches miss. To critics, a cautionary example of how fame, money, and moral weakness can collide around the pulpit. Bishop Lamer Whitehead. Lamer Miller Whitehead, popularly nicknamed the Bling Bishop, is a Brooklyn-born Black Pentecostal leader who founded Leaders of Tomorrow International Churches and cultivated a slick, high-fashion public persona. Before becoming a headline pastor, he worked in real estate and mortgage brokering, then repositioned himself as a rising church figure with political ambitions and high-visibility connections in New York City. His ministry gained national attention in July 2022 when 3 armed men stormed a Sunday service that was being live-streamed, stealing jewelry from him and his wife. Police estimates at the time put the haul in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, instantly turning a local preacher into a viral symbol of flashy clergy. When a religious figure showcases luxury, do you see blessing or warning signs? The spotlight intensified scrutiny of his finances. Federal prosecutors said Whitehead used spiritual influence to run multiple schemes, including tricking a parishioner into handing over about $90,000 with promises of a home investment, trying to extort a businessman for money and lying to investigators. A Manhattan jury convicted him in May 2024 on wire fraud, attempted extortion, and false statement counts. In June 2024, a judge sentenced him to 9 years in federal prison, plus 3 years of supervised release, $85,000 restitution, and $95,000 forfeiture. His case is one of the clearest court-proven examples in your transcript, where fame, wealth display, and claims of spiritual authority collided with criminal wrongdoing. Supporters still argue he was targeted because of his visibility, while critics point to the verdict as evidence that the platform was built on deception. Either way, Whitehead's rise and fall underscore the title's warning charisma, can draw crowds, but accountability is what keeps a ministry honest. Reverend Al Sharpton. Alfred Charles Al Sharpton, Jr., born in Brooklyn in 1954, is a Black Baptist minister whose public life has always straddled sanctuary and street. He preached as a child, was ordained young, and by the 1980s became a national civil rights agitator. In 1991, he founded the National Action Network, NAN, which positioned him as a constant presence in racial justice campaigns, funerals after police violence, and negotiations with corporate and political leaders. Unlike many prosperity preachers, Sharpton's fame grew less from miracle promises and more from activism, media skill, and an ability to command cameras. He ran for president in 2004, later became a key Democratic ally, and turned into a familiar TV voice through radio and MSNBC hosting. The controversy around Sharpton is not that he sells blessings, but that faith can look like a stepping stone to influence. Critics have long argued that his pulpit language sometimes serves political theater. Financial questions have also followed him. In the mid-2010s, major newspapers reported he and related businesses had accumulated millions in unpaid state and federal taxes over prior years, a burden he said he was working to resolve. More recently, NAN's IRS filings show Sharpton received sizable bonus compensation across multiple years, which opponents cite as evidence of nonprofit self-enrichment, while supporters respond that his salary reflects decades of high-risk frontline work and fundraising responsibility. Sharpton remains polarizing because he embodies a modern media-driven clergy model, part minister, part strategist, part celebrity. To admirers, he is a prophetic advocate who keeps justice on America's agenda. To skeptics, he is proof that the line between righteous cause and personal spotlight can blur fast when the microphone never turns off. Bishop Carlton Pearson. Bishop Carlton Demetrius Pearson, 1953-2023, was once a towering voice in American Black Pentecostal life, celebrated for magnetism, musical talent, and a rare ability to speak across denominational lines. Raised in San Diego and mentored at Oral Roberts University, Pearson became a protege of Oral Roberts and a national figure through preaching tours, television, and the Azusa Conference movement. In 1981, he founded Higher Dimensions Evangelistic Center in Tulsa, later known as Higher Dimensions Family Church. During the 1990s, it reportedly drew more than 6,000 people weekly, making it one of the city's largest congregations. His sermons blended fiery worship with counseling warmth, and his gospel music earned major awards, positioning him as both bishop and artist. Pearson's turning point came after reflecting on the 1994 Rwandan genocide and wrestling with the idea that millions who never heard Christianity were condemned forever. He concluded that eternal torment in hell was incompatible with God's love, and began teaching what he called the gospel of inclusion, a form of universal reconciliation. The backlash was swift. In 2004, the Joint College of African American Pentecostal Bishops declared his doctrine heretical. Attendance collapsed. The church lost its building to foreclosure in 2006, and Pearson's place in mainstream evangelical circles evaporated almost overnight. He moved into more progressive spaces, later serving as senior minister at Christ Universal Temple in Chicago and affiliating with Tulsa's All Souls Unitarian Church. His life became the basis of the 2018 Netflix film Come Sunday, which portrayed not a con man, but a leader paying a steep price for conscience. Pearson died in Tulsa on November 19, 2023 from cancer. His legacy remains contested, to some a brilliant shepherd who followed love beyond tradition. To others, a warning about how fame can vanish when beliefs drift from the crowd. Bishop Marvin Sapp. Marvin Lewis Sapp, born 1967 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, is a major black gospel figure who has spent decades moving between the stage and the pulpit. He first rose nationally in the 1990s as part of the group Commissioned, then became a solo star whose music reshaped modern church sound. His breakthrough anthem, Never Would Have Made It, turned into a staple across black congregations, and his 2007 album Thirsty hit #1 on gospel charts and went gold with sales reported above 500,000, an unusually high milestone for gospel. Alongside the music career, Sapp co-founded Lighthouse Full Life Center Church in 2003 and later led the Chosen Vessel Cathedral in Fort Worth, presenting himself as both worship leader and shepherd. The controversies around Sapp are not about proven criminal conduct. They center on fundraising optics and the weight of celebrity. A church convention clip from 2024 went viral in 2025, showing him pushing for a $40,000 offering target and instructing ushers to close the doors while the giving continued. Online critics read it as coercive and manipulative. Supporters argued it was a traditional offering moment taken out of context, and Sapp himself said the scene was edited to make it look harsher than it was. Regardless of intent, the episode reignited a familiar debate when a gospel superstar stands at the altar asking for large sums. Does the request feel like faith in action or fundraising under pressure? Public estimates of Sapp's wealth differ, but his income is widely understood to come mainly from music royalties, touring, publishing, speaking engagements, and pastoral compensation. To many believers, he's a survivor preacher whose songs carried them through grief and hardship. To others, his story reflects the uncomfortable truth in your title. Even sincere ministry can start to look like a business once fame, money, and power gather around a microphone. Prophet Brian Carn. Brian Carn, widely known as Prophet. Brian Carn is a Black American charismatic leader and founder of Kingdom City Church, KCC, launched in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2016. He built his public reputation through fiery prophetic preaching, national revivals, and a fast-growing online ministry. Supporters credit him with bold spiritual insight and a gift for calling people to repentance and hope. His church footprint expanded beyond North Carolina into additional campuses, with worship services streamed weekly to a broad, mostly Black Pentecostal audience. Carn also sells books, hosts conferences, and raises funds through multiple digital channels, making his platform as media-driven as it is pulpit-centered. The controversy around Carn intensified in mid-2025 after a woman, Vashti Ennis, posted detailed allegations online claiming a decade-long hidden relationship with him. She accused him of maintaining a double life, repeated infidelity, and using spiritual authority to manipulate her emotionally and psychologically. Soon after, at least one additional woman came forward publicly with similar claims about exploitation under the cover of ministry. Karn has not been criminally convicted in connection with these accusations, and he has not confirmed the relationship. However, he did address the situation indirectly in church settings, speaking about personal brokenness, repentance, and the need for prayer, which many interpreted as a response to the uproar. For critics, the episode fits a familiar warning: when a prophetic brand becomes celebrity-sized, accountability can shrink. For loyal followers, the story is a test of grace versus discernment. Either way, Karn's rise shows how quickly influence can turn fragile when private conduct appears to contradict public calling. Bishop George Bloomer. Bishop George G. Bloomer, born in Brooklyn in 1963, is a Black American televangelist who turned a streetwise preaching style into a national platform. After years of traveling revival circuits, he founded Bethel Family Worship Center in Durham, North Carolina, and built a multicultural congregation known for deliverance teaching and spiritual warfare themes. Bloomer's visibility expanded through television, first on the Word Network and later on TCT Network, where his programs blended emotional storytelling, urgent altar calls, and repeated appeals for seed offerings. He also developed side ventures in publishing and music, presenting himself not only as a pastor, but as an entrepreneur motivator for believers who wanted spiritual power and practical success. When a sermon asks you to give before it asks you to grow, what does that signal to you? Critics in the prosperity gospel conversation argue that Bloomer's broadcasts mastered an attention economy. Despair becomes a doorway to donations, and urgency becomes a business model. The transcript you shared frames him as a figure who can turn guilt, hope, and fear into reliable revenue while displaying a lifestyle that looks far removed from the financial reality of many church members. Unlike some names on your list, his controversies aren't centered on a headline criminal conviction. They're more about the optics of wealth, the tone of fundraising, and the way televised ministry can slip into salesmanship. There have also been public legal disputes tied to his media career, including conflict with a network over compensation and product promotions, reinforcing the perception that the ministry machine can operate like a commercial enterprise. To supporters, Bloomer is a gifted communicator who helped people break addictions, rebuild families, and believe again. To skeptics, he's a cautionary example of how easily a pulpit can become a profit-driven studio when fame and finance sit too close to faith. Pastor Alf Lukau. Pastor Alf Lukau is a Congolese South African charismatic leader, best known for founding Alleluia Ministries International AMI in Johannesburg in 2002. Over the next 2 decades, AMI grew into a multi-nation church network with large weekly gatherings and heavy social media reach, attracting followers across Southern Africa, Europe, and parts of the diaspora. Lukau's preaching centers on deliverance, healing, and breakthrough, and his services are staged with the polish of modern televangelism, dramatic music, choreographed altar calls, and a constant expectation that something supernatural is about to happen. If a miracle happens on camera, do you trust it more or less? His name became globally famous in February 2019 after a viral service showed him praying over a man in a coffin who then sat up, presented as resurrected. The incident triggered outrage from other Christian leaders and widespread mockery online. Soon after, media investigations and police complaints described the event as a hoax. 2 people connected to the episode were later arrested on fraud-related charges, while Lukau publicly said he regretted misleading the public and insisted the man was not actually dead when brought to the church. That moment permanently reframed his image from rising prophet to symbol of spectacle-driven ministry. Beyond the resurrection saga, former members and journalists have leveled additional accusations, such as staged healings, intense control over congregants, and inappropriate conduct. These claims have circulated heavily, but not all have been tested in court, so they remain allegations rather than proven facts. What is clear is that Lukau's platform illustrates the tension behind your title. When a pastor's brand depends on viral wonders and visible luxury, faith can start to look like performance, and performance in turn can become a pathway to fame and fortune. Pastor Shepherd Bushiri. Shepherd Huxley Bushiri, a Malawian-born Black Pentecostal celebrity, built the enlightened Christian gathering ECG into one of Southern Africa's most visible prosperity-style movements. With stadium-sized services, slick live streams, and a message that paired deliverance with financial breakthrough, he attracted huge crowds in South Africa and beyond. ECG's rise came with glossy symbols of success, luxury cars, high-end properties, and the image of a prophet who claimed heaven-backed favor. To admirers, he was proof that faith could lift you from nothing to influence. To critics, he was the face of a ministry that looked increasingly like a business venture. Bushiri's public collapse began in 2019-2020, when South African authorities charged him and his wife Mary with a long list of alleged offenses tied to investment schemes and church-linked fundraising. He was granted bail of about R200,000, but in November 2020, the couple fled South Africa for Malawi, violating bail conditions and triggering an extradition battle that has dragged on for years. In March 2025, a Malawian magistrate approved their extradition to face charges that South African officials say include fraud, forgery, immigration violations, and multiple rape allegations. Bushiri denied wrongdoing and fought the order. In late 2025, Malawi's High Court overturned the extradition ruling on procedural and safety grounds, meaning the case remains alive, contested, and unresolved rather than concluded. Whatever the final verdict, Bushiri's story fits your title because it shows how quickly a miracle-centered platform can unravel when courts step in. It also underscores a quieter lesson. When a ministry depends on spectacle loyalty and money flows, truth becomes harder to separate from performance. Bishop David Oyedepo. Bishop David Olaniyi Oyedepo, born in 1954 in Kwara State. Nigeria is the founder of Living Faith Church Worldwide, better known as Winners Chapel, launched in 1981, and now one of Africa's most influential Pentecostal networks. From a small Kaduna fellowship, his movement spread across Nigeria and into hundreds of cities worldwide, anchored by the Faith Tabernacle in Ota, a vast auditorium that became a symbol of modern African revival. Through affiliated institutions, he also built Covenant University and Landmark University, extending his reach into education, publishing, and large-scale events. He is a prolific author with dozens of titles, and his preaching style centers on word-of-faith themes, believing, boldly speaking promises aloud, and giving generously to unlock favor. When a pastor teaches that giving is the doorway to blessing, does that comfort you or concern you? Public debate around Oyedepo focuses largely on wealth and transparency. His ministry is reported to own a fleet of 4 private jets, and he has openly said these aircraft reflect divine blessing and help him fulfill a global mandate. Critics argue that such assets clash with the humility he often urges on members, especially when sermons strongly emphasize tithing and sacrificial offerings. Supporters counter that he funds humanitarian projects, schools, and scholarships, and that visible success reinforces his theology. Net worth figures circulating online range widely, often in the high tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars. But no independent audit confirms a precise number, so responsible discussion treats them as estimates. He has also faced periodic media scrutiny, including reports about offshore-linked corporate structures. These stories have not produced a criminal conviction against him. Oyedepo's story fits your title because he represents the sharp edge of prosperity-era ministry, a towering spiritual builder to admirers and to skeptics, a sign of how quickly faith can look like an empire when blessing is measured in jets and estates. Prophet Wibert Angel. Wibert Mudzanaire, known worldwide as Prophet Wibert Angel, is a British Zimbabwean Pentecostal figure who built his name through Spirit Embassy in the UK, later rebranded as the Good News Church. Emerging in the late 2000s, he attracted a diaspora audience with high-energy services, prophetic declarations, and a message that framed abundance as a believer's covenant right. His public persona leaned into success, tailored designer looks, luxury cars, and frequent claims that wealth is a visible testimony of faith. Supporters call that confidence inspiring. Critics say it risks turning devotion into a status symbol. Angel's fame expanded beyond church walls when Zimbabwe's president appointed him ambassador-at-large and presidential envoy to Europe and the Americas in 2021. That diplomatic title boosted his profile and intensified scrutiny. In 2023, Al Jazeera's Gold Mafia undercover investigation broadcast footage suggesting Angel offered to use diplomatic cover to launder large sums through gold trading. The documentary went viral, feeding the transcript's claim of money laundering and fake miracles. Angel denied wrongdoing, and Zimbabwe's Financial Intelligence Unit later announced it found no evidence to support the accusations, lifting account freezes tied to the case. So while the allegation remains part of his public story, it is not a proven conviction. Today, Angel continues preaching, broadcasting, and hosting large gatherings. Online net worth numbers range wildly, but none are independently verified and should be treated as speculation. His broader lesson fits your title: when spiritual authority, luxury branding, and political power stack together, discernment becomes essential because the line between gospel mission and fame machine can blur fast. Pastor Chris Oyakhilome. Pastor Chris Oyakhilome, often called Pastor Chris, is a Nigerian Black Pentecostal leader who founded Christ Embassy Love World Incorporated in 1987. From a small campus fellowship, the church grew into a worldwide charismatic network with branches across Africa, Europe, North America, and the Caribbean. Its influence is fueled by media, Love World Television, live-streamed crusades, devotional bestsellers, and arena-sized conferences. His preaching stresses divine healing, positive confession, and prosperity as a covenant promise for believers who trust deeply and give faithfully. When miracles are always on camera and blessings are linked to giving, do you feel uplifted or wary? Debate around Oyakhilome follows the fault line in your title. Critics argue that constant seed faith appeals luxury branding, and reports of private aircraft and upscale property tied to the movement make faith look transactional and celebrity-driven. They worry that ordinary worshipers, especially in harsh economies, are being taught to buy breakthroughs while the platform grows richer. Admirers answer that global evangelism, schools, disaster relief, and other outreach require large infrastructure, and they say giving is voluntary worship, not a fee for favor. To them, prosperity is not greed, but testimony. The most concrete public backlash has involved health misinformation. During COVID-19, he circulated conspiracy claims about vaccines and 5G. A UK broadcast regulator later fined a Love World channel for airing misleading and harmful pandemic content. He has continued to denounce vaccines afterward, and in 2025 drew outrage for asserting without evidence that a COVID shot caused Pope Francis's death. Those incidents widened the gap between his base and the public. Pastor Chris has not been convicted of financial crimes, but his career shows how prosperity teaching plus a media empire can strain trust when public faith and private power rise together. On Legends of Black Excellence, we honor the power of Black faith while refusing to ignore the shadows that can grow around the pulpit. The stories you've heard of luxury lifestyles, seed faith pressure, staged miracles, moral collapses, and court battles aren't meant to mock belief, but to protect it. Many of these leaders inspired millions, yet the same platforms that lifted hope also attracted money, fame, and unchecked authority, and the cost was often hidden. The debate we leave you with is simple and sharp. When a preacher's empire gets bigger than the message, are we still following God or just applauding a brand?